You are listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts, Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
I am very excited to be with you today to talk about how to have high transcendental sex. I believe when we make love with our partner, we secretly long to have a shared soul-merging experience of eternity and bliss with our beloved. We seek nothing less than to lose ourselves completely in love and to be consumed wholeheartedly in pleasure, uniting the physical and the spiritual, the human and the divine in a grand climactic ecstasy of spiritual oneness. Unfortunately for most of us, sex, especially here in the West, is a hurried rush, a routine under blankets in the dark, devoid of that miraculous transcendent experience. For a good bunch of us, and I know through our coaching practice and people who attend our workshops, that most of us enter and leave our sexual encounters already disappointed and vaguely dissatisfied by the mundaneness of our love and pleasure expressions. A whole bunch of us are wondering if we aren't missing something really wonderful and important. I'll be honest with you, and just reveal here that I used to think high transcendental sex wasn't possible to have in relationship. It wasn't possible actually even in this life. I really thought it was just a fanciful dream relegated to some afterlife romance novels, artful porn flicks, or experienced Tantrikas. I really didn't think it was possible, especially as a coach when I was working with a lot of couples who all seemed to not have this wonderful experience either. So I just thought it was the norm. It really wasn't until I fell in love with Christian and experienced the profundity of lovemaking that I discovered not only was blissful sex possible, it was entirely re-creatable. So what is transcendent sex? So let's talk about that here for a moment. Transcendent sex, in my way of thinking, is a blissful, magical, extraordinary experience in lovemaking where we enter into an altered state of the infinite that transcends time and place. It's an experience where body and spirit, self and other, all blur in this mystical realm of non-duality, where high pleasure states and orgasmic energy streams just ripple through your entire body unencumbered, not just the genitals, where high emotional embodied states of love, bliss, ecstasy extend beyond the five senses. So I'm going to attempt to, here in this podcast, discuss how to have high transcendent sex with your partner. I'm going to share with you some of what Christian and I do in our own lovemaking that might be of use to you. And you're going to be able to use some of what we're going to be able to share with you with yourself, with a new lover, a beloved soulmate, or even a long-term spouse. We've had people who haven't been sexual for 8 years begin to rekindle their love life by embodying some of the practices and ideas that I'm going to be sharing with you here today. Much of what I'm going to be talking about requires a shift in focus and really the patient development of new relationship and sex practices, as well as attunement to the moment without expectation or goal, which is probably the hardest. In this podcast, I will alternate using the words God, Spirit, Universe, Infinite, Mystery, Source to describe the creative life force and the energy of sex that lives and moves through all of us. All right, I am going to be sharing with you different pieces here in no particular order. One of the first things I think we need to do to be able to have transcendent, miraculous experiences in sex is we've got to, first of all, expand our definition of sex. For most of us, sex is defined as an act that includes just the genitals, most often referring to intercourse and including orgasm. Everything else is relegated to foreplay, subpar acts that we engage in for the sole purpose of leading up to and preparing for the consummate act of penis in vagina. That's exactly the definition that has some people say they didn't have sex with somebody when they engaged in other forms of sexual play but did not have intercourse. Now, unfortunately, this narrow description of sex, while leaving out hosts of gays, lesbians, transgendered folks, teens, elders, singles, a good number of married straight people who cannot or choose not to have intercourse or orgasm for a wide variety of reasons, it also limits our creativity in the sex department. When we focus on intercourse and orgasm as being an end goal in sex, we are less able to fully let go and surrender to the moment in our experience. We don't allow ourselves to explore and play beyond our known boundaries, our techniques, right? Our proven successful sex techniques. We stay within the realm of what is known, predictable, workable, comfortable, safe. We stay within what we have done before. Expanding our definition of sex serves another purpose as well, which it allows us to address sexual differences in relationship. So think about this, right? Because sexual desire, arousal, preference for frequency, duration, position, activity, and sexual styles all exist on a spectrum, there is no way that two people can ever be an exact sexual match all of the time. So when the definition of sex isn't limited to intercourse and orgasm, then it is still possible to have an abundance of different sexual interactions when intercourse or orgasm are not possible or are not desired for whatever reason. Not only that, but if you're seeking sexual connection and you're not in the mood, right? Or I'm not in the mood, we can still together find a creative way for both of us to get our needs met if we don't limit ourselves to what sex has to look like. For example, if you want sex and I don't, I could touch you to orgasm while we hold each other afterwards to sleep, right? Both of us feeling completely satiated from a sweet sexual encounter without having engaged my genitals at all. There's a wide variety of different activities we can engage in to mutually satisfy each other and our various needs and concerns that can only happen when we expand our definition of sex. I once heard a sex expert suggest that our generation is actually having a lot less sex than our parents did because we have more expectations for sex and we're more limited in the kinds of sex we're willing to have. In the past, people were more interested in potentially having sex where one person has an orgasm, for example, right? Or having a quickie, and because we have so many more expectations, we enter into sexual interactions much less frequently. So again, one of the first steps to creating transcendental sex experiences is to broaden our definition of sex. When we expand our definition to include any kind of sensual touch, teasing, tickling, licking, tasting, smelling, breathing, making sounds, exploring each other orally, manual stimulation and touch of the entire body that may or may not include any genital exploration or penetration at all, then a whole new world opens up. We actually free ourselves to be in the moment of whatever it is we're experiencing, to creatively experiment and play and discover and learn about ourselves and our partners. And as we follow our body's impulses without attachment to outcome, we're more likely to be surprised and to delight ourselves with new experiences outside the realm of predictability. Expanding our definition of sex frees us up to be creative, to innovate, to follow impulse, to risk stepping into new territory, to try new things, to take on new practices, to ask for what we want, to follow our feelings and hunches, to go where, no man has ever gone before. And this new territory is precisely where transcendental sex experiences live. So the more we can fully let go of our expectations and predefined sexual goals, the more likely we are to be able to experience different high states of sexual arousal and sensual experience. Another important aspect that I have found for creating high transcendental sex experiences is summarized in this way: leave your personality behind. When we move through our daily lives and routines, right, we're interacting with each other as adults who have jobs, roles, responsibilities, personalities, right? We take care of each other's concerns. We make decisions together. We work as equal partners to take care of our children, our home, career, to manage money. We're careful, conscientious. We're judicious in our interactions with each other as we tend to the habits and rituals of everyday life. In lovemaking space, it's imperative that you leave your personalities and egos and roles outside the bedroom door, outside the sexual experience.
You are listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts, Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
I find I need to let go of who I think my partner is, or who I think I am even in household or relationship contexts. Otherwise, I'm going to feel too self-conscious, careful, and controlled in my sexual expression. I'm going to feel more separate and unable to fully merge with my partner. So to make way for wild, unpredictable, alive sexual passion, you've got to shift how you see your partner. You want to be able to see your partner as a new mystery to be discovered, not as a dull rerun that you have already memorized by heart. So I'm going to say that again. You want to be able to use your imagination. You might have heard that phrase, right? Like, your sexual experience is not so much what happens between your legs as what happens between your ears. So you can use your imagination to cultivate this ability to see your partner as a new mystery to be discovered and experienced, not as a dull rerun that you have already memorized by heart. So to help you to shift seeing your partner as a mysterious spiritual being, you can imagine that you and your beloved are like two young lovers seeing, breathing, tasting, and feeling each other for the first time. Actually pretend that you don't know this person so you can help yourself see your partner through fresh eyes. Look deep into their eyes and see the spirit, that innocent, beautiful being that is lying just beneath. Connect with the mystery of your beloved. Sometimes I like to imagine that Christian is like a stand-in for God even, right? He's loving me completely. God is loving me completely through Christian's eyes, through Christian's body, without reservation or condition. He's loving me unconditionally. When Christian and I engage in any kind of sexual experience, I think of it as that we are no longer Sonic and Christian. We're no longer parents. We're no longer partners, homeowners, entrepreneurs. We're not relationship experts. We're not mature, sensible, rational adults. We enter into another realm where we are lovers. We are young, new, passionate lovers, man and woman, human and divine, the masculine and feminine whirling around, spiritual and animal, surrendered and wild. I have this sense that we are energy in motion, fluid, undulating, alive. I have the experience that Christian, my lover, is a spiritual being from this eternal realm. And I've chosen to join with him, to open to him, to take him in, to give myself fully over to him, to merge with him. He is the essence of the masculine, right? Hard, confident, pointed, focused. And I'm the embodiment of the feminine, soft, yielding, surrendered, open. I am love itself. We are both love, merging and melting together as these two energetic forces converge. Together, we create heat and fire. And as he and I kiss and wrap our bodies around each other, I imagine actually that this fire energy of sex and spirit is channeling through our bodies, expressing itself in whatever way it's inspired to. You know, I imagine that God is playing with itself through our bodies, and it's having its way with us. It's taking us places. It's moving our bodies this way and that way, and it's intending to delight and surprise and bring us unimaginable experiences of pleasure and connection. So in this way of thinking, and I'll tell you, it really frees us up. Because when we move with us like we are lovers and we are these vehicle or these vessels are vessels for this energy moving through our bodies, we imagine that we are not the source of our desires, our movements, our sounds, our explorations. It's more like spirit, or spirit is the source of everything that arises in our lovemaking. That shift in focus allows us to both fully express ourselves without reservation and to be more open to following and surrendering the inspired ideas either of us have for a different position or activity. Right? So if Christian has a desire to flip me over, it's not him having this desire. It's more spirit has expressed this desire through him. And both of us get to enjoy where spirit is moving us and taking us. And in that way, we can lose ourselves more in this glorious variety of pleasure and sensation. We don't have to hold ourselves back in our expressions of love and pleasure, sound and movement, breath and touch, because we're not directing the show. In our minds, spirit is directing the show. God is directing the show. This energy is directing the show. So you can play with that idea in your lovemaking. Actually see your partner's body as a conduit of the divine energies of the universe. You know, imagine that your lover is channeling that energy through your body, through their body into yours, and vice versa. And together you're creating this upward spiral of energy. And let that energy move you. Let it guide you. Let it inform your impulses. Follow those desires that arise in you as if spirit is directing you or playing with itself through your body. In that way, you can be surprised by where you go and what you do. And I'll say from that place as well, when we just allow ourselves to be these vessels for this energy moving, then sex follows, everything we do in sex follows from this following of energy and not from this following of some formula. It's not following something that worked well before, and so we're just going to do the same thing again because we know it works. It allows us to be more in the moment of our experience. And in that way, our lovemaking times are always new and fresh. They're always alive with the mystery of the moment. Another really important practice for creating high sex is to slow down. When you slow down and accentuate your senses, when you focus acutely on what you are feeling in your body, you notice more. you notice more sensation, and the more sensation you notice, the more pleasure and delight you feel. The faster you go, the more sensation you miss. Like really, try it right now. Take a moment to look around and just drink in your surroundings. Just notice textures you might not have seen before. Notice items that are sitting around that you might not have noticed before. If you have flowers on your desk, notice a specific petal that would have gone missed with you just looking at the whole vase. Now specifically look for the color blue in your surroundings. Just call it out with your focus. And notice how much blue you now see that you would have missed before. I remember one of my best ways of really noticing this quality of focus and how much our focusing, slowing down and focusing allows more to pop into our noticing is when I go to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. You know, you can breeze by an aquarium and just see the big fish. But if you hang out there for a while, you know, take 5-10 minutes to really focus in on a particular aquarium tank, you start to see all kinds of little critters moving around, all kinds of little shells, all kinds of things begin to pop into existence by taking that moment to slow down and focus that would have gone missed otherwise. And the same is true in sex. The faster you go, the more you miss, the more you slow down and focus on what you're feeling, seeing, tasting, hearing, smelling in the moment, the more you notice and experience. And this heightening of focus actually results in deeper layers of pleasure distinctions and subtleties that serve to heighten your experience of bliss and ecstasy in sex. It actually has you notice more, and it helps you magnify whatever it is you are feeling more. And if you think about it, that is what we're doing at the beginning and during the honeymoon stage with our lovers. Everything is heightened because we have slowed down and are focusing so much on every little thing we are seeing and feeling. You know, our partner touches us with their finger and we jump with electricity. And it's because of that slowed down focus and attention that we put on the subtleties that are only available for us to notice from being fully slowed down and present. Now, slowing down is pretty contrary to popular practice in our culture. Most of us tend to rush to orgasm as quickly as possible, right? As I already said, we repeat the touches we know work and produce the result. And unfortunately, the more routine our approaches in sex, right? The more habituated we are in our sex practices and the more goal-oriented we are, the less present we are and the less we actually feel, right? You can notice that when you drive the car, right? It's so automatic. You can actually get from A to B without having really noticed anything, either that outside your window as you're driving, and you certainly don't notice your foot on the pedal or your seat, your butt on the seat, or your hands on the steering wheel, you know. And the same is true in sex. When we have these habits of being in our sex, we can actually go through a whole sex experience mechanically without really even having to be fully there. So you can help prepare yourself for being more focused and slowed down in sex by just practicing that in your everyday life. You know, slow it down and taste your food when you eat. Feel the sun and wind on your body when you go outside for a walk. Stop and smell the roses. You know, pay attention to really looking at, you know, the fire in your fireplace and watching the flames dance, or hearing the crackling of the fire in your wood stove. Really feel the arms of your beloved around you when you melt into a hug. Awaken your senses. And really play with that the next time you make love. When you kiss, instead of kissing the same way you always do, slow things down. Really focus on your mouth as you're kissing. Pay close attention to the movements of your lips as you and your partner meet up together. Notice the opening and closing of your mouths, the moistness of wetness on each other's lips. Turn into the flavors and the smells as you taste and drink in your partner. Feel the different textures of your tongues as they playfully dart in and out of each other's mouths. Feel the intertwining of your tongues. Just let yourself slow down, tune in and focus. And the kiss all by itself, just by that slowing down and focusing present practice, will become richer, deeper, more significant. It will stand out more. It'll be a way to really mark the moment of that kiss. And just then, extend that. Do the same with your neck, your ears, your breasts, your belly, your genitals. And you're going to discover pleasures you had completely missed before. And it's going to heighten your sexual and intimate experience. Another thing that's really important for being able to have great sex, great high sex, is to not be afraid to stop. A bunch of us feel like once we start making love, we feel compelled to keep going until one of us both reach orgasm and we're done. No matter what occurs in the middle, we're all kind of, once we get on the track, we feel like we got to stay on the track until the finish line. But what happens if we have a wayward thought in the middle? What if something hurts? What if we find ourselves feeling disconnected? What if we want something different, right? What if we notice our partner isn't really there? What if we aren't feeling aroused at all? Like, what do we do when stuff comes up in the middle of our sexual experience that actually takes us out of the moment and prevents us from really being able to join with our partner and to connect with our own bodily pleasure? So we actually say, don't be afraid to stop. In order for us to have an experience of transcendental union, right, we've got to be connected to ourselves. And we also have to be connected to our partner. We have to not have anything in the way. So the moment that there's something unspoken, or the moment you disconnect from your body or your partner or the experience altogether, you cannot have an experience of sexual bliss. It's impossible. So it's okay to stop in the middle and realign. Few of us are ever in an enlightened state perpetually, right? We go in and out of love. We go in and out of presence. We go in and out of connection. And that is true. While that's true in life overall, it's also true in sex. So when we dare to stop and say what we're really feeling and experiencing in the moment, we allow ourselves to reconnect with ourselves again. We give our partner a chance to drop into more intimacy with us too. We give ourselves that chance of realigning and reconnecting with what really wants to happen, with what really wants to get said. And when we realign, that's where we have the possibility of returning ourselves to presence and pleasure. I'll say Christian and I have had some of our most intimate experiences in sex when we stopped in the middle to cry, to say what we were feeling, to vulnerably reveal some crazy voice running in our head, to check out an assumption, to laugh about something that struck us really funny, to share some fear we couldn't let go of. I mean, sometimes we've stopped in the middle of, sex to say, sorry, but I just keep remembering I forgot to call Susan back. Will you just remind me? And I have to say that to be able to let go of it so I can return myself back to the sexual experience. And when we have done that and after either resumed our lovemaking or not, sometimes we've actually stopped and just, went to another place of connection and intimacy with each other. We actually felt more connected afterwards. way more connected afterwards. And when we resumed lovemaking, we were more connected precisely because we were willing to stop and realign and reconnect, to not just plow unconsciously ahead to an empty and finish line. So I really want to give you permission to stop and to talk and to share and to be fully yourself so that you are allowing yourself to completely line up. And there are ways when you talk to also be tender and yet tender and kind to your partner about whatever it is that's going on for you. Remember in sex that we are always doing our best. And if your partner is having this really wonderful time doing something with you that you don't like, it's really great to be able to either enjoy your partner enjoying you, or to stop and say, thank you so much for doing that. And I can totally get that you're having a lot of enjoyment doing that. And while I don't really want to stop you from your pleasurable experience I'm noticing for myself right now, it's really hurting, and I'm wondering if we could find something else to do.
You are listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts, Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
There are always ways to communicate our shifting needs and desires and preferences and requests in a way that allows our partners to feel validated, celebrated, received, and not put down, shamed, or blamed for a potentially painful or uncomfortable experience. Another way to communicate is, wow, I'm really liking that, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to try this now. So that we're including in our experience, bringing ourselves fully to the experience and giving ourselves what we need as we go along so that we really can stay in the moment of whatever it is we're creating together and keep it a really great, wonderful, pleasurable, high experience for us both. All right, another important component in high sex is breathing. Just breathing in and out and slowing it down to pay attention to your breath. At the start of any intimacy or sexual transition is really great because it transitions you from a doing state, right, a productive state, an active state, into a state of being, where you can be more open and receptive and somatically oriented, right? You can be more in your body. It helps you get out of your head and into your body, away from thoughts and concerns, and brings you into the present moment. Just breathing by itself can eliminate self-consciousness, right? Self-consciousness is when we've got all of our attention on our head and on ourselves and our, by thoughts that are running around. So when we turn our attention to our body, sensation and pleasure, right? Or we turn our attention to our breath, we take ourselves out of thoughts that keep us from being in the present. From a neurological perspective, breathing actually helps us calm the nervous system, reduces stress, decreases blood pressure, increases energy. So breathing is a really great way to harmonize and connect ourselves with our bodies and harmonize our head, heart, and body and emotions all at once. So just focusing in on breath reconnects you with your spirit and your body. So you can start, when you start a lovemaking session, Christian and I do this sometimes, is we just start by taking a few deep belly breaths, focusing in on the air, moving in and out of our lungs as we inhale and exhale. You can even try more structured rhythmic breathing, where you inhale for, a count of 7 breaths, and then exhale for a count of 7 breaths. So you help yourself slow down your breathing. You can also try, as you breathe, sending breath to different parts of your body. You can kind of imagine it as like an internal massage, and you can send it to different parts of your body to help open up your body, to help connect yourself with those different aspects of your body. You can also even imagine your breath swirling around and relaxing, connecting, and activating your pelvis and genitals, so that you're sending breath and your attention to different aspects of your body to help awaken different aspects of your body. One of my favorite ways to incorporate breath in lovemaking sessions is to breathe together, where we are syncing up our breath. And there's a couple of different ways you can sync up your breath. One is where you both breathe in and out together at the same time. And another way to synchronize your breathing is to alternate your breath, right? So as my partner breathes out, I breathe in, almost like I'm breathing in his breath, and then he's breathing in me by taking in my breath. So we're alternating. When I'm inhaling, he's exhaling, and vice versa. In order to match your partner's breath, you've got to first be able to focus, slow down, and tune into their breathing rhythm, right? It requires that kind of slowing down and focus to notice the falling and rising of their chest, or the sounds they're making as they're inhaling and exhaling, to notice the differences in speed and length. And it's the noticing of all of that that allows you to begin to match your breath to your partner's breath. Breathing during sex also allows you to significantly enhance and heighten your sexual experience. The more you breathe, the more relaxed you are. And the more relaxed you are, the more you're going to allow energy and ripples of pleasure to move through your body. Breathing also can help with postponing ejaculation, lengthening orgasms, helping you have multiple orgasms or multiple whole body orgasms. One of the things that we're often unaware of in our lovemaking experiences is how much we hold our breath. And, when there's pleasure that comes, because we come from a pretty negative sex culture, right? Where we get so many negative sex messages, and it's not okay to enjoy sex. It's not okay to make sounds. It's not okay to fully be, these wild animal human beings in sex, and to fully let ourselves kind of, move around and make lots of noise. So we have a tendency to all be very tight-lipped and stiff and quiet and proper in our sexual experiences. And when we are tense and holding and held back in our breath and movement, we limit our capacity to really feel these different energies moving through our bodies. So breathing fully in sex, especially as you are experiencing pleasure, is a real important aspect of allowing yourself to feel and move more of this energy, to feel its movement through your body, and therefore to heighten your sexual pleasure. Right along with breath is, and I've kind of referred to it already here, is this moving freely and making sounds. All three of those are really essential for taking sex to another level. When you feel free to move your body in whichever way you're inspired to move, right? To follow pleasurable sensations without restraint. When you let yourself move in concert with your impulses and your desires, to take responsibility for helping your body build up sexual tension and pleasure by moving yourself in different ways. Moving your hips and your buttocks freely, allowing motion waves to ripple out of the tip of your head all the way down, from the tip of your head all the way down to the bottom of your feet, to include your whole body in the pleasure experience. All of that is so essential for you being able to allow this energy experience to move through you. And not only that, but it's a way of communicating to your partner what feels good, what you like, what you want more of. When I make a sound of, oh God, that's so good. Or I don't even add words, just, oh, yeah. I'm telling my partner that I like that. Keep doing that. This is so enjoyable. And that heightens my partner's experience of pleasure. And his noises heighten my pleasure. So our noises and our breathing, when we're like, that is communicating to our partner like some of what we're experiencing in our body. And those communications don't happen when we don't allow ourselves to breathe, to make sounds, and to move. So not only are we enhancing our own experience when we let ourselves move freely, breathe freely, make sounds freely, but we're heightening the experience with our partner when they're joining with us in that practice. And together we can feed off of each other's movement, feed off of each other's breath, feed off of each other's sounds, and spiral us together upwards into an ever heightening experience of lovemaking orgasmic pleasure. This next one here is the most important, I think. Well, I don't know. They're all important, so scratch that. So this has been an important part of enhancing my own sexual pleasure in sex, and that is summed up in this one sentence: relax in high states of arousal. This is probably, as I already said, right, one of the most powerful sex practices to help you become multi-orgasmic and ecstatically blissful in your lovemaking. And it goes hand in hand with everything we've been talking about so far, with slowing down, breathing, increasing your focus on sensation, right? Not rushing to orgasm, just allowing yourself to be in the moment, fully move, fully express. So think about this. When we get turned on, especially those of us in the West, like our typical way of having sex is that we rush to a climax. And we are wired to help the orgasm along, right? We're wired to help it get there as quickly as possible with rapid movement and the buildup of tension. And the last thing we're usually thinking about when we're making love is relaxing and prolonging the turned on state, right? It feels so good, we just want to keep going. But one of the secrets to transcendental high sex is this ability to relax in high states of arousal. So let me explain that. When you relax in high states of arousal, so think about that, right? You're building yourself up towards orgasm, towards climax, and there's this incredible bunch of energy that is built up as you approach. And instead of like continuing the climb and just getting to the top of the mountain, right, and having all of that energy released in one fell swoop in one particular area, when you can relax instead just prior to actually having an orgasm, and you allow that energy to dissipate, to subside, or to plateau, right, with movement, with breath, right, with relaxing your entire body. As you relax, you begin to spread that sex energy that would otherwise have just been fully expressed in that one orgasm release. You spread it out over your entire body. Not only does it spread this energy out more generally and broadly through your whole body, and this is really the best part, is that when you pick up, engaging in sex again, whatever activity you were doing or the next one you want to do to build up towards orgasm again, the energy, the pleasure is magnified substantially. And it's almost like you can go higher, so if you stop right before you have an orgasm and you let it play, you relax in high states of arousal. When you let yourself relax into high states of arousal, right? So instead of letting yourself climax, you let it subside a bit. When you pick it up again, it's like you get to go higher. And when you stop again right before, having an orgasm and you relax again into a high state of arousal and you let it subside. When you build up again, it's even higher. So the more you can postpone orgasm with this practice of relaxing in high states of arousal, the more rounds of that you can stand, the higher your orgasm is going to be, the more pleasure you're going to experience. And when you do this in conjunction with your partner, where both of you are building and relaxing and building and relaxing and building and relaxing, it calls for this incredible attunement and focus of not only your own body, but also your partner's body, so that you can tune into when to stop for your partner's benefit of allowing that energy to subside before you both build again. So I would just encourage you to play with that. Christian and I have had so much fun with just this practice of relaxing in high states where we just get close, we stop, we let it subside, we build again. Not only does that have our lovemaking session last longer, but it increases the pleasure substantially. And I'll tell you another surprise that I have noticed in my own sexual experience, and I'll share this with you for you to be able to begin to incorporate it in yours as well, is that when I relax, I will notice these little contractions inside my vagina or my G-spot or my clitoris even. Like there'll be these little ripples of contraction that are mini orgasms. And you might notice your whole body shake as you kind of stop and relax and allow this energy to move through your body. And that is kind of that's like a body orgasm. When your partner licks your ear, breathes in your ear, whispers something, right? You might have these little goosebumps and ripples that spread out from your body as your partner is playing with your neck and ears. That's another kind of orgasm. And this relaxing in high states has had me notice these subtle ripples of energy as they move through various parts of my body that I missed before when I was just going for the finish line. The other thing I've noticed, which I will share for some of you out there, is when I relax in high states of arousal, and I kind of do this, like repeating this pattern several times and allowing myself to keep building and building and building and building, is at some point I am so built that when I relax in that high state, so instead of kind of tensing my body and helping it orgasm, right, I'm now relaxed. When my body continues to build without stimulation and it rises on its own to orgasm from that relaxed state without my forcing it or helping it along with tension and contraction, those are the best orgasms ever. So I'm just going to say that, play with it. It's really, really fun to kind of notice and to notice all the variety of orgasms that you can have when you stop, focus, and relax. And the other thing I will say, especially for those of you who might have a hard time having orgasms, or you are done after an orgasm, you might even play with not having orgasms and just playing with this build up of pleasure and enjoying all of the different sensations, because there are so many that, just like the Monterey Bay Aquarium, right? When you let yourself really focus in on all of those subtle pleasures and feelings that are all happening, not just in your genitals, but in your belly and your breasts and your armpits and your ears. There is so much more pleasure to be experienced. It's going to be called out and brought into your experience as you focus in on that. All right, let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. So remember too that there are a couple of different ways to focus on sensation. So one is the sensation you feel, right, when your partner is touching you. But there's also the sensation in your body when you're touching your partner, right? So when I'm touching his his chest with my hands, I can feel in my fingers, right, what his chest hairs feel like in my fingers. I can pay attention to how my lips feel when I kiss him. So I can pay attention to the sounds, like how his sounds occur in my ears when he makes a certain sound or when I move a certain way. I can pay attention to the curve of his body on my leg, feel the tickle on my face from his beard, right? So we can pay attention to our sensations, both as giver and receiver. And when we do that, we transpose giving and receiving to the point that it's really hard to know where my pleasure starts and his ends and begin, right? It's kind of all the same. And that blending of kind of not knowing what's mine and what's his pleasure, because we're both fully in appreciating and reveling in the sensations as both giver and receiver. When we do that and lose ourselves in sensation, then we're merged in a completely different way than when I'm just giving to you and I'm not really paying attention to what I'm feeling, right? I'm just kind of going through the motions to get you off. It's very different to really be in the experience as giver as much as a receiver. And when you do that, you can experience that place of transcendental union, which is really the ultimate consummation of lovemaking. All right, one more here, and we're almost done. So hang in there. This is being fun. I hope you guys are getting some good stuff out of this. Another really important thing, and I kind of alluded to this already, is just interrupt as many patterns, habits, and routines as you can. It really is so tempting for all of us when we discover something that works in sex. We come across something that feels good and we really like it, produces a desired outcome. It's easy for us to just want to keep doing it over and over again. But there's a downside to succumbing to a routine in sex, no matter how wonderful it is, and that is that we quit being present. We quit being present to the mystery of sex and love's energy. We quit being in the moment and the delight of the mystery. We don't let it kind of, take us. We get bored. Frankly, we just get bored and lose interest with too much routine and predictability. I remember hearing somebody say once that the difference between a rut and a grave is a few inches. So I'm just going to say that again. The difference between a rut and a grave is a few inches. So if you're feeling flat in your sex, break up patterns, abandon formulas, give up control, quit trying to get to some end of an orgasm as quickly as possible. Break it up. Do something different. If you always make love the same way, do it a different way. If you always have an orgasm, don't have one sometime. It's kind of a trip to have sex and not have an orgasm on purpose. If you always have one first, have one second next time, right? If you are used to quickies, do a longie. If you're used to longies, do quickies. Don't relegate sex to just the bedroom. Have sex in the shower, the living room, the yard, your car. If you always start with oral sex, start with something else. Allow for one-sided pleasure sessions here and there. Touch yourself in front of your partner. I'll tell you, self-pleasuring can be a really great turn on for your partner, as well as a way for you to take responsibility for your own pleasure and sex. Take risks. Try a new position. I used to take on this practice of every time I have sex, I'm going to do something different. It was kind of a little challenge for myself. And there are tons of things you can do. Bring in toys. You can act out fantasies. You can try something you saw in a magazine or read about in a romance novel. I'll tell you, you can get some really great ideas from sex educational books and movies. There are a ton. And I'm not talking porn here. I'm talking about educational videos that show you different ways to touch your partner, different ways to have oral sex. They teach you how to have how to ejaculate, if for women. They teach you how to postpone ejaculation if you're having trouble with premature ejaculation. I'll tell you, there is a ton of really great information out there. If you always make love in the dark, turn the lights on, put on candles. Make eye contact when you have an orgasm if you usually close your eyes. If you're usually quiet, be louder. If you're usually always on the bottom, be on the top. Just mix it up. and really follow your impulse. I'll tell you, Christian and I, we've been making love for some 14 years now, and we still have new ideas pop up in our lovemaking sessions. And I can honestly tell you that every time we make love, it's always a little bit different. There's always some new surprise that arises that we completely delight in. And don't forget all the stuff that I said. So don't be afraid to ask for what you want, to try new things, to stop in the middle, and just play with these things. Like stop, breathe, just, and you don't have to go all the way to like screaming, if you're used to being quiet, just make it a little louder the next time. If you usually rush to orgasm, just try once to relax and see how that feels. You don't have to, do 10 steps at once. You can just do one each time and keep expanding yourself. So I just want to say by way of wrap up here, be gentle with yourself. Most of us have been impacted by, as I said earlier, an abundance of negative sex messages, and a bunch of us have even had sexual abuse experiences in our culture. So it's not surprising that most of us are pretty naive or ignorant in the sex department. Most of us have had very little sex education at all, and a good bunch of us are healing from trauma. So, as a result, our reticence to fully express ourselves in sex is pretty understandable. The truth is, it takes time to learn new ways to be in sex, and it takes time and practice to create this experience of high sex by taking on some of these new things. So, again, just be gentle with yourself. Just take little risks where you can. Making eye contact, in the middle of a sexual encounter, not wearing, a shirt to bed. I mean, little things can make very big differences, just like the little rudder of a boat. So, just take little risks and shift it up and try these different perspectives and see what they open up for you in your sex. Have fun with this, and please don't hesitate to contact us if we can be of further help to you in your sex life. We've had people who have had good sex lives who they just wanted to improve it, and those people have come back and said, oh my God, I've had the best orgasms I've ever had. I thought our sex life was good, but it's even better now. And we've also helped people who haven't been sexual for 10 years get started with reviving their sex life. So if there is any additional support you need to bring your sex to up-level your sex life and bring more passion and pleasure to your relationship, we would be honored to support you. We have a whole course we offer on sex that we call it The Possibilities of Sex, and we also offer individual and couples coaching sessions as well. So just know you don't have to navigate this whole conversation and topic alone, that there is help available for you. Alrighty, have fun. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Look forward to touching base with you next. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Dare to Love podcast with Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, co-founders of LoveWorks. And hey, if you found this podcast to be valuable, would you hit the share button and go ahead and share this with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever your favorite hangouts are. Thanks so much for sharing the love.